Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So years ago, I read a book by a Presbyterian pastor named Timothy Keller. He has a church down in Manhattan, or out in Manhattan, wherever you're from. It's in Manhattan. And he wrote a book. He's written a number of books that I find very helpful. One book was on a theology of work. In the intro to this, he cites another book. So here's kind of Keller referencing a book by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, we probably know this. You probably know that Tolkien was a Catholic. In fact, all of Tolkien's worldview was shaped by his Catholic faith. Even Lord of the Rings, the trilogy that he had written, he said that Lord of the Rings is a religious and essentially a Catholic book. And it's phenomenal. It has so much symbolism and so much again, how Catholics look at the world written into this fantasy novel. One of the things Keller points out about Tolkien is that Tolkien was a perfectionist. Tolkien was, that creative kind of person who was never done with his work. I don't know if you've ever been that kind of person where you start a project and it's like you just keep tweaking it and keep tweaking it and keep tweaking it. Well, in England, apparently, that tweaking is called niggling. Niggling, Niggling, niggling. To niggle at something is to keep on working on it and never be done, never be satisfied with it, but to always kind of be in process and drive yourself crazy in the process. So at one point he's working on Lord of the Rings, this massive volume, and he's created languages, he created all his backstory, and he wasn't making any forward movement. And so at one point he had to take a break and he wrote this short story, and the short story was called Leaf by Niggle. Leaf by Niggle, and it was about this painter living in this small town who had great ideas and great visions for the kind of painting he wanted to do. He had this image of this huge, beautiful tree with the sun and this wide plains and mountains in the background, and he had this whole image in his head of what this painting could possibly be. So he had this massive canvas, but all he could work on was one leaf. And then, knock at the door would come and he'd have to go help. And then he'd keep going back to work on the leaf and someone else would need help and he'd have to go and help. And he was so frustrated because he had this great vision in mind that he could never actually fulfill in his life. Turns out that, spoiler, he dies. And he dies with only just that one leaf painted that he'd worked on and poured himself into. People came to the house and they saw the leaf on the huge canvas, so they cut the canvas and made it small because it was a beautifully painted leaf. And it's, there it is in the town art gallery around this corner. Here it is, and Leaf by Niggle. If we were to look at him from, say, an atheist perspective, you'd say, what a failure. I mean, the guy had this great vision for his life, what his life could be, what his work could be, and all he painted was one leaf. It's too bad, man. It's just, you win some, you lose some, and you lost at life. But Niggle's story isn't over because we realize as theists, as those who believe in God, and specifically as Christians, those who believe in our God, Leaf's life, or Niggle's life, wasn't over when he died. He was brought into heaven. And in heaven, his guide to heaven revealed to him this huge tree that was beautifully growing out of the ground with the sun on it, with this plain stretching out behind it into these mountains. And Niggle recognized his tree, his mountains, the vision that the Lord had planted in his heart that he could never realize on earth was now realized in heaven. The lesson that Tolkien was trying to communicate to us, and that Timothy Keller is pointing out in his book on work, is that a lot of us might devote our lives to a great vision, right? We might devote our lives to this great work that just never actually gets fulfilled, that never actually gets off the ground, that never actually gets accomplished. We might never finish the great work that the Lord has placed in our heart. In fact, so many of us, we don't see the fruits of our labor. We don't see the fruits of a life well-lived or a life poorly lived. We just kind of we live and live and live and work and work and work, and then we die and we go, what's it all for? All I have is this one leaf to show for this entire life. And this is where the virtue of faith, the virtue of hope, this is where the perspective of God comes in. For the rest of the world, they might say, wow, that person wasted their life painting one leaf. But we realize this, a life that's lived in Christ and devoted to one great thing Whether that great thing is like to teach my class of fourth graders, or to raise up my kids as best I can, or to treat the patients that I see in the hospital or in the clinic as best I can, or whatever. Maybe it's to edit videos. Maybe it's to produce great content online. Whatever the thing that you have in your heart, in your mind, whatever you're working for, even if it's not accomplished on this earth, we believe, we trust that the Lord can do something with it that radiates through eternity. This is one of the things that we believe as Catholic Christians. There's no thing that you and I can choose to do on this earth and in this life that doesn't matter. That every good work that you and I try to do, it matters. Every sin you and I choose, that matters too. Because we believe that there's a God we trust. And if everything we do is for Him, then everything we do can be redeemed by Him. That everything we do that's offered up to Him, all those things will be accepted by Him, transformed by Him, and made new by Him. That they can give glory to Him forever in heaven. Your work, even if your work is to pick up garbage every morning from 5 a.m. till noon, that work can give God glory if you do it for Him. Yeah, but it doesn't make an impact. It matters. You're made in God's image and likeness, therefore you matter. And everything you do in His image and likeness, everything you do in His name is offered to Him, received by Him, transformed by Him, made new by Him, and gives glory to Him forever. So let's make this day where we have all the things that we offer to God are the good things, and then we stay away from the bad things, because both good things and bad things matter. Make your life a gift, make your life a blessing, make your life something that can be offered to God to give Him glory, not only in this life, but also in eternity. From all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name is Father Mike. God bless.